Alright, this is Jahangir from MedPorium, and today we'll be talking about part 5 of the urinary system. Now for today's video, we'll be talking about the first half of part 5. Now in part 5, we will be discussing urine and renal function tests, but in today's video, which is the first half of part 5, we will only be talking about urine. To start, let's define urinalysis, which is the examination of physical and chemical properties of urine. Now let's move on over to composition and properties of urine. And to discuss this, let's move over to the ThinkPad. Alright, so we're at the ThinkPad and we want to understand composition and properties of urine. Well, to start, we need to talk about appearance. Now, color of urine depends on hydration. I want you to remember that. So let's just say in the first toilet, this person was really hydrated. Their urine will look more in the light yellow. Now the second toilet, let's just say this person wasn't that hydrated. Now this is an exaggeration, but their urine would look more in the darker yellow. Now the yellow color of urine is due to urochrome, which is a pigment from the breakdown of dead red blood cell hemoglobin. Now the color of urine is also influenced by food, vitamins, etc. So if urine is cloudy, then that can indicate pyuria, which is pus or white blood cells in the urine, which indicates kidney infection. Now there's also hematuria, which is when there's blood in the urine, which indicates infection, trauma, or kidney stones. Now the second property or composition of urine includes odor. Now urine has a specific smell that we all know. Now food like asparagus can change the smell, but in diabetes mellitus there is a sweet fruity odor in the urine due to acetone, which is one of the keto bodies that the body forms due to cells that lack insulin. So in diabetes mellitus, there is a sweet fruity odor due to glucose being in the urine and, as we talked about, acetone. Now the third component or property of urine is specific gravity, which is the ratio of density of a substance to the density of distilled water. So distilled water is just 1.00 specific gravity. Now, specifically in the specific gravity of the urinary system, this test shows concentration of different chemicals slash solutes in urine. Now, this is calculated by multiplying the last two numbers of the specific gravity of urine by 2.6. So let's just say this patient has a 1.025 specific gravity. Now we get those two last digits, and as we said, multiply by 2.6, which would equate to 65 grams per liter, which is the normal amount of solutes in urine. So now let's talk about osmolarity. Osmolarity is pretty basic. It's just stating that when you're hydrated, there's a less milliosmol per liter. When dehydrated, there's a higher milliosmol per liter by 1,200. Now let's talk about pH. Now the body generates metabolic acids and gets rid of them by releasing a urine pH of 6.0. Finally, we have chemical composition. Now urine is 95% water and 5% solutes. That's all you need to know for composition and properties of urine. Alright, so we just finished our discussion about composition and properties of urine from the ThinkPad. Now let's talk about urine volume. An average adult produces 1 to 2 liters of urine per day. Now, in diuresis or polyuria, there can be an excessive production of urine, greater than 2 liters per day. Now, in oliguria, there can be a production of less than 500 milliliters per day of urine, and in anuria, there is 0 to 100 milliliters of urine produced per day. Now, a thing to remember is that low output inhibits the body to maintain safe, low concentration of waste in the blood plasma, which can equate to azotemia. Now, this low output can be created by trauma, circulatory shock, etc. Now, let's talk about diabetes and its impact on the urinary system. Now, there are different forms of diabetes. There's diabetes mellitus type 1 and type 2, gestational diabetes, and diabetes insipidus. To really understand diabetes and its effects on the urinary system, let's move over to the ThinkPad. Alright, so we're at the ThinkPad and we want to understand diabetes. Well, to first understand diabetes, we need to talk about Dave. Dave, unfortunately, has diabetes mellitus, in which he has chronic polyuria. Now, as we talked about before, chronic polyuria is the excessive production of urine per day. So he produces 3 liters of urine per day. Now, why is this? Well, in diabetes, polyuria is resulted from the high concentration of glucose in the renal tubule, as I mentioned in the series. Now, glucose retains water, so water joins in the renal tubule and doesn't go through the body, doesn't get reabsorbed. So, in all, Dave pees out all the water that is necessary in his body and stays dehydrated, unfortunately. Alright, so we just wrapped up our conversation about diabetes and its effect on the urinary system from the ThinkPad. Now let's talk about diuretics. And diuretics are any chemical that increases urine formation. It does this by increasing glomerular filtration rate. And as we talked about throughout the series, increasing glomerular filtration rate allows the tubular fluid to flow rapidly without being reabsorbed or secreted by dilating the afferent arteriole. Now, diuretics also reduce the tubular reabsorption of water. Now, diuretics are a great treatment for hypertension because this reduces blood pressure. And as we talked about, if water isn't reabsorbed, then there's no high blood pressure. Now, an example of diuretics, a weird example, would be alcohol. Alcohol inhibits antidiuretic hormone secretion by reducing reabsorption in the collecting duct and overall increasing urine formation. Alright, so that wraps up today's lecture on the first half of part 5 of the urinary system. In today's lecture, we talked about urine, including the composition, the properties, the volume, how diseases affect urine, and the chemicals that affect urine. And as always, a Pomodoro a day will make you a doctor someday. I'll see you next time.